Whew, all right, YouTube, here we are today, and we got Steve Hoffstetter. I'm gonna try to cover this a little shorter than I did prior. I have two longer videos. I'll still release them. They're funny. I'm definitely taking shots at this motherfucker, but today we're gonna try to bring it to you with the facts. I'm gonna try to keep it as short as his video, if not a little under his video. We're gonna apparently this guy's a comedian. I don't find him funny. He's actually kind of a sad asshole. His name is Steve Hoffstetter. He gets more into tearing up hecklers than actual comedy, and I guess that's become a comedic style. I was never in. Heckling is annoying. The heckler themselves is just doing it for the attention. Sometimes, in the case of Joe Rogan, the heckler's funnier than the comedian. Like, just sometimes, in the case of Joe Rogan, he's sometimes funnier as a heckler than a comedian. It's really rare, but I don't enjoy hecklers. He loves to tear them apart, and I think it just speaks to his shitty character. Like, 80% of his videos are just him going at hecklers, and I don't know. Since Marjorie Taylor Greene was kicked out and is starting to put together the motions to kick out Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, AOC, Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris. She's got the time to do it now. Now we all fucked up and gave her the time, but let's just see what you guys believed that led to this.
Trump spawn like Marjorie Taylor Greene can't be expelled from Congress before she destroys America? I'm not, because she totally can be.
She was, but it wasn't valid. She actually wasn't expelled from Congress. What happened was she was expelled from her committee seats. She still serves as a congresswoman. The committee seats were for oversight on her end. She is a business owner. Her position on these seats would have helped. That's it. That's all.
Here's how. First, the backstory that would make a Batman villain jealous. Greene is the congresswoman from Georgia's 14th district, which has only been around since 2010.
This is just a huge smear. He's just talking about where she ran. You run in places with people who are like you, so she probably moved to this district. There were probably more people politically in line with her thinking. That is most often what happens. Why you move in different districts when you're running as a politician than where you were raised at or where you grew up at or where you grew up next to. You usually go somewhere else to be a politician.
District is so young that if they ever killed it off, Marjorie Taylor Greene would assume it was a false flag. Say what you want about Greene. I mean, please, say what you want. She's nauseating. But she is born and raised in Georgia.
Steve Hoffstetter, if you're listening, you are absolutely a nauseating human and have no right to call anyone nauseating when you call this comedy. This is the problem. I bust up laughing in my 30-minute special tearing this guy apart because he calls this comedy. This is seditious and it's a character attack. It's not comedy. There's nothing funny here, people.
She's from Milledgeville. She went to college in Athens, and she owns a construction company in Alpharetta. Yet none of those places
Also a restaurant in Colorado, but let's just not talk about that.
Are in or even near Georgia's 14th district. So why did she run there? Greene wasn't in politics until last year. Well, unless you count things like calling 9/11 a hoax politics.
Yes, she spoke as a private citizen, and those things should not be used against her, as we don't use the racist remarks Nancy Pelosi has said behind closed doors against her. We should share that same sort of courtesy both ways. Everyone should have the right to be forgotten about when they were a teenager, or when they were in public life, or when they weren't a civil servant. We should only hold things civil servants say against them. See, this is where the problem comes in. You're not holding it to the civil servant, you're holding it to the person. This is okay, but as a private citizen, she can still think those things. She's just not allowed to say them on camera anymore because she is now a civil servant.
Greene was living Trump's version of the American dream, running Taylor Commercial, the business she got from her father. When her stint there...
Nothing wrong with that. He doesn't understand building a business and building your own. He is just a lowly comedian. He's not like a famous comedian. He's kind of a nobody, and I almost feel bad for punching at him, but I'm still punching up, so I don't really feel too bad. But he isn't understanding that that's how family businesses work. Someone older than you builds the business, you pass it on. His unique brand of comedy, I guess, could be passed on to any children that a woman who felt in love with that face might want to have with him. I Could not. If I was a woman, thank God I'm not. Jesus, I could not love that face. But it's just kind of ugly, and I'm trying not to be as ugly as him, but this is just so mean-spirited. I can't. Like, I give people what they give to the world. So when you give me ugly mean-spiritedness, you get ugly mean-spiritedness back. This has harmed my position in life and times, but I understand that. But that is also what you get. I don't necessarily... If I'm nice to you all day, every day, and you come at me with your shitty attitude, just know my attitude was already shittier than yours. I was just trying not to show it. This guy is not that person who can comprehend that. He can't comprehend familial business. This is something, generational success is not something he can understand. But that is probably where he is a mid-range comedian whose most of his fame comes from heckling videos. I was talking about it last night with someone I know, and she was very sure that, like, she'd seen him heckling, and I'm like, ew. I'm like, but she said that he's funny at it, and I'm like, yeah, because what, like, sad person isn't? Like, if you're really sad on the inside, how hard is it to attack someone else for not agreeing with you or thinking your joke was funny?
Didn't work out, she got heavily into CrossFit, because of course she did. Green started out as a 2020 candidate for Georgia's 6th.
That's what I'm talking about, CrossFit. It's like, don't be ugly about that. Maybe you should try it. Like, don't take this wrong, Steve Hoffstetter, but you don't look like you've worked out a day in your life. You don't look like you've honestly gone to a bar and hung out and met a woman or a man, whatever you're into. It's 2021. It's hard to tell with a face like that. I just don't understand how you think this is a brand of comedy. You're just literally committing, like... libel would be more written, but if you wrote the script, it's libel. It's libel slander no matter how you cut it, dude. I'm sorry. You're slandering her. That's all you're doing.
District. You know, the blue one where she was actually living. And where she...
I think because this guy made waves with his video on PETA, he thought he could keep, like, hitting in the same market with these short, quippy idea videos. They're not even quippy is the unfortunate part, and I'm going to skip a little ahead, actually. Let's see. Heavily into CrossFit. See, that's where I'm like, that's just a personal attack. So we'll start from... We need to skip forward because I've talked a lot.
Election as an Islamic invasion of our government. She called Democrats a global cabal of Satan-worshipping pedophiles. She harassed teenage survivors of school shootings. And
this is not what she did. He was an 18-year-old, so an adult legally speaking, who was in the public eye and was in the public sphere. Therefore, he does not get the same eligibility that an 18-year-old does to withhold their comments from the public. Like, he had to... She would have been through her own shooting. She saw how nobody having a gun impacted the situation negatively in the gun-free zone. I mean, what more do you want? Like, I mean, and she apologized for this yesterday, and it still wasn't sincere enough for CNN. I'm here like, oh my God, CNN calling someone disingenuous after denying 7 months of BLM riots? Okay, sure.
Said that the shootings were fiction. And remember, she also thought 9/11...
Calling something a hoax and saying it's fiction are different. A hoax can be real and still have an element of reality within it. Maybe she was calling the narrative a hoax. Maybe she was calling the story a bit of a hoax, the way it was presented. The shooting happened. I don't think anyone denied that, especially not the representative. I think she was calling the handling of it in the news a hoax. The same way I refer to Columbine, it was completely mishandled in the news and it was a hoax. The parents never got the blame, and the parents are the only people to blame. Those parents knew what their kid was doing. So if you go to Columbine and you go and say, oh no, it was just a tragic accident that two really smart kids who left journals that their parents found did this, that had detailed plans in their journals did this. That's not a white privilege excuse, that's a negligence excuse. Those parents should have been charged with negligence. They taught their children how to make bombs. But why weren't they charged with negligence? What was the reason for the corroboration that these were just fine kids? That something happened? It was to make sure that you were scared of the gun. It was to make sure you were scared of the gun, and it worked. It has worked. America's been terrified. In fact, I hear people talk about Columbine all the time in their music, and when I start writing music, I'm going to take shots back at these people. Like Eminem, he keeps talking about it. You know, I was pulled out of school. It's not a memory I like reliving. Like, it was a bad day. Can we all just agree to that? Okay, next, can we agree that sometimes shitty parents have kids and they're in shitty places and they shouldn't be? This wouldn't have happened if those kids were homeschooled. You know what probably would have happened is they probably would have killed their parents, and it's sad to say that. But would it have been better that their parents died instead of the school? Probably. I mean, just realistically, when you're talking about potential versus wasted potential, those parents failed to raise their children properly. Like, that was on them. But because they were publicly schooled, that became their enemy. They needed an ideological enemy in their own head to make what they were doing right. That was their enemy. They chose the school system. That is so awful. That is so awful that their parents never helped them through that period where they needed an enemy. If somebody would have been their enemy no matter where they were, that's awful. That's awful. But I'm going to be honest. The hoax was in the information, not what happened. The shooting happened. I was pulled out of school that day. So yeah, I get where Marjorie Taylor Greene's coming from. If there had been a good guy with a gun, those kids would have been dead. Again, that's 2 kids versus half a school or a whole school, and you're saying that would have been wrong? Or that there was no hoax in how the information was delivered because it made everyone believe that using metal detectors was appropriate for children? But okay, let's keep going.
It was a hoax. How terribly patriotic. But wait, it gets worse. Green said that black people should be proud of Confederate monuments.
Which, as a black person, I am, because it shows that we are the most badass motherfucking race in this whole country, and that nothing you say, Steve Hoffstetter, no offense, random cracker with some random opinions on how black people should feel about monuments, that's not racist at all, is it? Earlier in this video, or at some point in this video, it's going to come up her extramarital affairs, which I feel like he's a sexist for using that against Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, and that is just a feeling. I'm not going to call him a sexist. I just don't think he would say that about a male politician who had extramarital affairs. And if that is the case, Steve Hoffstetter, you are a sexist, and my feeling is confirmed.
She said Muslims don't belong in government.
They don't, as the people who've said death to America, who have a large terrorist population within their own ranks that they can't seem to expel. Maybe until they solve that problem within their own belief system, maybe they shouldn't be in politics. I'm not trying to defend her thoughts on everything, but I'm just trying to explain that there is some rationale there.
Here's videos from Holocaust deniers, and she pals around with the leadership.
It's not denying to say that a certain number didn't happen, because the Japanese people were killed the largest number during the Holocaust. Like, in the largest number, the Japanese were killed. We should never forget that. We should never forget that Japanese deaths outweigh Jewish deaths during the Holocaust. But again, our Jewish presenter doesn't have a space laser, so he'll get to that too.
Of the KKK. And her lawyer is Trump conspiracy theorist Lynn Wood because of court.
On the KKK point, I have to say Joe Biden knows the Grand Wizard of the KKK personally. Whether that's changed in modern times may or may not be true. He did, as a younger politician, ride in a car with the Grand Wizard of the KKK. He defended the KKK on multiple occasions as fine people with their own beliefs. So, sorry, Steve Hoffstetter, didn't want to cut you off again, but you just keep making bad points out of comedy.
He is. Oh, Green also thinks that wildfires were started by a group of Jewish people who shot at California with lasers.
I cover this in another video. I'm not going to cover it. We're going to use this to skip.
It's extreme, but it has happened once. And also 19 other times. Yes.
She wasn't expelled, but she was kicked off the committees, so no, it can't just happen for no reason, Steve Hoffstetter. Thank you for lying to the American people like you were CNN. This has been Drew here with Politically Black. We're not going to take it any further. This guy lies about everything, then uses comedy to brand it appropriate. I've got 2 videos next week that I'll drop, one on Monday, one on Wednesday. I mentioned it in the second video because I forgot that you guys will be seeing it already at that point. But I'm going to sign off here. This has been Drew, aka Gamer Guy Vladimir, here with Politically Black. And honestly, I hope you guys have a great week, a good month, a better year, and just don't let all this shit hang too high on your head, especially if you're a Republican. I hate reporting it because it's the same news, it's boring, it's played out, and these people aren't comedians, they're leftist mouthpieces. So, signing off, have a great day.